All right, let's get right into it. We asked for them, you send them 5 Steam games, all tagged war, and we're diving deep into the trenches of digital conflict today.
Sounds like a plan.
We got descriptions, release dates, player reviews, the whole 9 yards, so let's see what kind of strategic mayhem awaits. Ready to mobilize, expert speaker.
Locked and loaded. From what I see on the roster, we've got a real mix of time periods, genres, even the way you experience those classic war elements. Should be fun.
Exactly. It's amazing how broad that one little tag can be in the gaming world. But to kick things off, let's talk ReEarth. Just came out in July, and it's described as this mashup of tower defense and real-time strategy. But hold on to your hats, because you're humanity's last line of defense against gigantic, monstrous bug swarms.
Yeah, and the way they've woven those two genres together, tower defense and RTS, is pretty smart. Think about it. You're building your base, classic tower defense, right? But you're also managing units, sending out tanks and troops in real time, like a good old-fashioned RTS. Recipe for some intense battles, for sure.
Oh, I bet. Now, I heard through the grapevine that there's this infamous mission with Emperor Turtles.
Oh, you heard about those, did you? Yeah, the Emperor Turtles. Talk about your classic game design, right? These giant, lumbering behemoths stomping all over the place, almost like the developers threw them in there for laughs. But let me tell you, they are tough customers. You really got to bring your A game, strategically speaking, to take those guys down.
All right, you had me at giant turtles. That's going straight on the wish list. But we've got more battles to plan, and this time we're cranking the clock back to, let's see, 1985 with SGS NATO's Nightmare. Talk about a blast from the past. It's all about a Cold War gone hot.
Now this one's for the history buffs out there, definitely. Imagine the world's on edge, tensions are high, and then boom, that Cold War everyone's worried about, it boils over. That's where SGS NATO's Nightmare drops you right in the thick of it.
And it's not just about moving little tanks around a map, right? I was reading that it gets into some pretty serious military organization, even down to the brigade level.
You got it. It's almost like stepping into a military simulator. That's how detailed it is. You're not just dealing with platoons, you're talking entire brigades. Thousands of troops, multiple battalions, all under your command. It really ups the ante, strategically speaking, and adds a whole other layer of realism, which, a lot of games kind of gloss over.
Definitely. And to spice things up even more, they've got this whole card system worked in.
Exactly. Each card, it's like this little wild card, right? Could be a historical event, a political curveball, maybe even some sudden tech advancement that throws everyone for a loop, forces you to think on your feet, adapt your strategies, kind of like those world leaders back in the day, always trying to stay one step ahead. Add a whole nother layer to the whole Cold War vibe.
It's one thing to read about the Cold War in history books, but to actually game it out, make those decisions, that's a whole different ball game.
It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it?
Yeah,
Makes you think about all the what-ifs, all those possibilities.
absolutely. Okay, ready to shift gears a bit. We've got another historical campaign on the docket, but this time it's World War II. Let's talk Strategic Mind. Blitzkrieg came out back in 2020, and it puts you right in the thick of it, commanding the German forces during, the Blitzkrieg.
This one always catches my eye because it tries to do something a little different with the genre. Yeah, you've got your historical accuracy, your units, your battles, all that good stuff. But it also weaves in this whole narrative element. You're not just some disembodied general pushing units around. You're interacting with these historical figures, making decisions that actually shape how the story unfolds, almost like you're right there in the war room with them.
It's like choosing your own adventure, but World War II edition. And with Unreal Engine 4 powering the visuals, I bet it looks incredible too. Although I will say, I've seen some, let's say, mixed reviews about the voice acting.
Yeah, the voice acting, that's the thing about games, right? Sometimes the smallest detail can really make or break the immersion.
Tell me about it. But hey, maybe it adds to the charm for some. Either way, Strategic Mind. Blitzkrieg, a game that definitely sparks some conversation. But let's take a break from the ground game for a bit, shall we? I'm itching for some aerial combat. Vincemus Air Combat, expert speaker. This one sounds right up our alley.
Oh yeah, this one's a blast. Came out in 2022, and it's all about that classic arcade-style dogfighting action. But here's the kicker. It's designed specifically with mouse and keyboard in mind.
Wait, really? No need for a fancy joystick setup?
Nope. And you know what? It works surprisingly well. The controls are super intuitive, really responsive. Whether you're pulling off these crazy maneuvers or just going toe-to-toe with an enemy ace, it feels smooth, it feels right. And that's huge, right? Opens up the whole aerial combat experience to a much wider audience.
No doubt about it. Accessibility is key in gaming, and from what I've heard, they've managed to find this great balance between, well, realism and that arcade-style fun. It's not a hardcore sim, but it's not just a mindless shooter either.
Exactly. They really nailed that sweet spot. We get the thrill of the dogfight, the speed, the agility, the whole shebang, without getting bogged down in overly complicated mechanics.
Makes you wonder what's next in the world of game design, right? But for now, we're going to stick with our deep dive here, and we've got one more game on the list, something to take us back in time, all the way back to ancient Rome, Legion Gold. It's a blast from the past, this one. Came out, what was it, 2002?
Originally, yeah, but they did a remaster, re-released it on Steam back in 2020. Gotta love those devs who keep the classics alive, right?
Absolutely. Speaking of keeping things alive, how does Legion Gold hold up in the modern gaming world? Still worth a playthrough.
Oh, for sure. It's a classic for a reason. You know,
Yeah.
you've got all the ingredients of a great strategy game. City management, army building, a little diplomacy to keep things spicy, and of course those massive Legion battles.
Music to my ears. Although I was reading something interesting about the combat system, something about it being automatic.
Yeah, that's what makes Legion Gold stand out a bit. So you're not directly controlling your legions on the battlefield like in, say, a real-time strategy game. Instead, you're making your decisions beforehand, choosing your units, formations, that kind of thing, and then the battle plays out based on those choices.
Huh. So it's almost like a game within a game. You're strategizing on a grand scale, but then letting the AI duke it out on the battlefield.
Precisely. And you know what? It works surprisingly well. It really lets you focus on that bigger picture, expanding your empire, forging alliances, that sort of thing. Less about micromanaging troops and more about thinking like a Roman emperor, I guess you could say.
Now that's a thought. So if I'm following you correctly, Legion Gold is less about twitch reflexes and more about, well, strategy, planning, that long game.
Exactly. You've got to think several moves ahead, anticipate your rivals, play the political game just as much as the military one. It's a different pace from those other games we talked about, but just as engaging, trust me.
Well, after covering all this virtual ground, from bug swarms to Roman legions, I'd say we've earned ourselves a little victory lap. What an incredible journey through the world of war games, right?
Yeah.
It's amazing how one simple tag can encompass so much variety.
Tell me about it. We've seen it all today, haven't we? Intense real-time battles, grand strategy on a global scale, even a little bit of historical role-playing. And each one, in its own way, offers a glimpse into those elements of conflict strategy, those decisions that shape history, right?
Absolutely. It really makes you think about the war game genre in a whole new light, doesn't it? It's not just about blowing things up, although, let's be honest, that can be fun too. But there's this whole other layer of strategic thinking, historical context, even a bit of storytelling woven in there. It's a genre that's constantly evolving, pushing boundaries, and finding new ways to challenge players.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So for all you listeners out there, if you're looking for your next gaming fix, don't sleep on war games. You might just be surprised at what you discover.
And on that note, expert speaker, until our next deep dive, stay strategic out there.